Hey everyone, I'm going to double check that we are live. I know the one time I don't check will be the one time that it doesn't show up on Facebook. So let me double check to make sure we are good. And there we are. Awesome. So, hey there, I'm Jason Logston, and this is Makin Bacon. We're all about helping you serve your fans, grow your income, and get the most out of your blog. And today's episode is brought to you by my very own Self-Publishing 101 video course. It's all about how to publish a printed cookbook on Amazon using KDP. You can check it out at makethatbacon.com/publish now. And a lot of bloggers don't realize that the average home cook owns almost 50 times more printed cookbooks than PDF cookbooks. But a lot of bloggers only put out downloadable PDFs. So why are you limiting yourself? With the advent of print-on-demand companies like Amazon KDP and Ingram Spark, it is now easier than ever to become your own publisher. But if you don't know what you're doing, you can waste not only your time, but also your money. And that's where my video course comes in, stepping you through the entire self-publishing process. Like I said, you can check it out at makethatbacon.com/publish now. And remember, you can join us live every Thursday when we record these episodes. You can ask the guest questions, talk to the other bloggers in the comments, and even see our smiling faces. So join us Thursdays at makethatbacon.com/live. Now, on to the show. As bloggers, we talk a lot about social media and growing our brand, but we often don't get the most out of each site. Pinterest especially is known for changing up their algorithm and leaving bloggers frustrated and confused about where to turn. But luckily, today's guest is the perfect person to help us out. She is a Pinterest strategist, niche marketing expert, and an OG pinner. She helps overwhelmed and confused business owners learn how to grow their audience and unlock the power of Pinterest to level up and create a constant funnel of leads, sales, and website traffic. I can't wait to learn from today's guest, Meagan Williamson. Meagan, welcome to Makin Bacon.
Thank you, Jason. What a beautiful intro. And I loved hearing about the sponsor today. I was like, that's a great idea. I am not even a food blogger. And I have to say, I prefer real books. I do, right? That's how, like, when I show support for somebody, it's through a real cookbook. Thank you so much for having me here.
I'm really excited to dive into all things Pinterest and find out from your expertise. Pinterest is something that I know very little about. So I'm very excited to learn from you. I have some guests on that I'm like, I know a lot about what they're discussing. And here I'm like, this is going to be
really, as an old food
the
blogger, yeah, this is your territory. Actually, you hit the nail on the head when you said that, you know, food bloggers feel, and Pinterest changes a lot, and there's a lot of upset and unrest in the blogging communities, which I'm part of. I hear it, and it's such a funny world to me when, you know, I kind of changed positions. I was a blogger. I started a blog 10 years ago, and then I became sort of well-known in the Pinterest marketing world. And actually, bloggers is where I got started. My friends from the DIY craft and decor world started asking me to help them with their Pinterest accounts to drive more traffic to their website so they could make more ad revenue, generate more page views. And so I kind of came from that world, transition. And now it's funny because I work with so many bloggers and I hear the same complaints, right? I'm mad at Pinterest. I can't believe this. I can't believe that. But as a marketer, I just see things so differently now.
I'm really excited to dive into some of the ways that you view Pinterest and how you can use it to really expand your traffic and grow leads. But the way I like to start off every interview is, what is it like around your dinner table on a typical day?
This is a great question. Nobody's ever asked me this before. So I have a 4-year-old. Almost 4-year-old. He's going to be 4 on Monday. So just a few days away. And I'm laughing because it's a song and dance. So I'm sort of new school. My husband's older school. You know, you should eat everything that's there. I'm just happy. You know, we don't have any screens at the table. We actually have a standard question where we say, what did we do today? And we all share something that we did. My husband and I love eating good food, home cooked food. But I have to say, since I started my business and since we had a child, which I like to describe as having a beautiful bomb go off in my life, we found making time to cook from scratch very hard. My mom growing up always cooked from scratch. I love cooking, but the idea of the time of, you know, the amount of time it takes, plus my husband and I often like maybe fancier meals. My kid's asking for pizza, chicken fingers. He's okay with like homemade stuff, but he wants something less fancy than us. So actually, I have to admit something. I'll just get it off my chest so everyone knows. We actually have not prepared food, but we have meal kits sent to our house, which generally means though we try a lot of different new things. We always ask our son to try the food, and even if he doesn't like it, then we'll get something else. But my table is a noisy, loud one that involves a 4-year-old saying, "I don't like that." Last night it was about mushrooms. We said it's okay, and we also have an 85-pound 1-year-old dog who often is looming very close by because we have a toddler who will drop food.
What type of a dog is it?
He's a rescue. So he's, people often think he's a German Shepherd, but he's a German Shepherd Husky here in Ontario. So I'm in Canada. We have Northern Ontario is a lot of Aboriginal territory and reserves. And there are a lot of roaming dog populations. And actually 8 years ago, I adopted a Northern dog, smartest dog I'd ever had, beautiful, intuitive, and trained herself. And so we got Declan after our last dog passed away. We adopted Declan, and he is the same. He's from Northern Ontario, and he's a Shepherd Husky, and they're just gorgeous dogs.
We have a Swiss Mountain Dog Rottweiler mutt that we rescued
Amazing.
About 8 years ago. He is one of the dumbest dogs I've ever seen, but he's very handsome, so he gets by on his looks.
So I can actually, my last dog I was told on a regular basis by strangers, like how intelligent she was. My current dog, although the same genetic background, even from, very close areas of the province, he is the opposite. He is stunningly gorgeous, a showstopper, and thick as bricks. Full of love, but and obsessed with human food, which also makes it interesting in our home when you have a dog who's very food driven.
A little more exciting around your table.
Yes.
We have Mike Lashardy in the comments says he's excited because his wife doesn't understand why he has so many physical cookbooks. So it's all about the support. He appreciates that. And
right.
He says his 6-year-old rolls his eyes now when he tells him he's cooking and he can't have McDonald's or pizza.
Oh, right. Of course. It's so funny. My kid actually only tried McDonald's for the first time about 6 months ago. And he told me he didn't like it. I was like, okay, we've been doing something right? Like what kid doesn't like McDonald's? He's in a very bougie home here. We live in a beautiful neighborhood that has a lot of like organic, meat markets and fresh food markets. And so he's a reflection of that. Organic cereal bars only for this kid,
Speaking of the dog, he's coming over to help conduct the interview.
Oh, good. I approve.
So you've been blogging for as long as I have, I think 2009. Right?
Yeah. So I started a blog. It's funny. I actually had no intention. I'd been talking about starting a blog, in the time period where everyone talked about starting a blog. I saw a meme about that recently. I was in grad school and my friends and I said we should start one about things that happen at grad school. Then eventually, actually, I left my job here in Canada to go live in Scotland and then Northern Ireland. And lo and behold, I had a very classic immigrant experience that although I was qualified to do the work that I did in Canada, I got my license for the UK. Nobody would hire me. Not a crow. I couldn't even get through the door of jobs that I had had 5 years previous because I was educated in a different way. And so at that time, my partner said, Meagan, like you're really good at the internet. You consume a lot of blog content yourself. You are so good at like growing things and decorating. Why don't you start a blog? Like you're so bored, right? I'm somebody who's always was busy. And it was the first time in my life I was unemployed. And so I taught myself how to code and create a custom WordPress website and made it like a job. Like I did it every day. I really loved it. And the rest was history from there, right? It was in not the early days, but it was where like I call myself like a OG blogger. Like I blogged when not everybody was blogging. And because of that, I learned about promoting your blog through different social media channels, and Pinterest was one of those.
What was it about Pinterest that really kind of stuck for you about something that you wanted to focus your time on?
So, at the in a very honest way in the beginning, and I actually think that this has served me to this day, is that I started using the platform because it served a need for me. Now,
Mhm.
I don't know if this anyone else feels this, but it was a time where we used to have folders on our laptops called chocolate recipes or things I want to make or woodworking projects. I had like 100 of those, right? Like gardening inspiration, furniture flipping ideas, and I would save these different images from my travels online. Because again, I spent a lot of time online reading. I'm not really a TV person, but I loved looking at like home decor and do-it-yourself tutorials. And when Pinterest came out, I actually just was like, amazing, a virtual mood board or a virtual scrapbook, right? And so I started using it just as a regular person. And I actually noticed that when I was blogging, all of my traffic was coming from Pinterest. And at the time, she still to this day is one of the biggest Pinterest accounts. Her name is like Rosa something. She has like, I don't even know, millions of followers. She pinned one of my projects and it went viral. I got like 10,000 page views in one day from her pin on Pinterest. And I was
Wow.
like, wait a sec, this other person is sharing my stuff and it's going viral. I don't share my own projects. Wait, I should be sharing my own projects to Pinterest. And at the time, I probably had about 50,000 followers. But since that time, I now have 123,000 followers on Pinterest. And I think that's because I always used it the way it was designed to be used. I still use it. I go there for recipes. I go there for projects. I go there for inspiration for different things in my life. And so that's where I started realizing that maybe people started asking me, like, how did you learn this? And I'm like, I'm just personally drawn to it. Let me teach you what I figured out. And that, the rest is history.
I feel like that's one of the big ways to be successful on most types of social media is
Mm,
to use it and understand it and use it in the manner for which it was designed.
absolutely.
And Pinterest is very different than a lot of the other social media. How does it kind of stand apart from something like Facebook or Instagram?
Well, that's a hard question right now, Jason, because we know that in 2020, there have been a tremendous amount of changes on Pinterest. So we're seeing them roll out new features where they're not necessarily asking users to leave the platform. I think traditionally I would have positioned it, and I know never pitting Instagram or Facebook against Pinterest, but Pinterest was always this place where people went for inspiration, went to find solutions to their problems with the intent that we knew Pinterest wanted them to leave the platform. So
Mhm.
much, we know Instagram and Facebook are wonderful places, but they want their people to stay in there. And so things are built where, links are suppressed or keep it in there. And then we always kind of said, oh, well, Pinterest is different. And Pinterest, I actually was at a great presentation they did, and they said, we want our user base to go out and live their life. We want them to act upon the things they were pinning. And I always love that sort of message. The thing is, this year they're now rolling out things like story pins, which is to keep the user base inside the platform. It doesn't mean it's necessarily bad. And I know if any bloggers who have, lots of bloggers groaned, oh, why would I do anything that I couldn't put a link to? And you just actually have to think outside the box. How can you make this work for you without taking away, that people still have a reason? And that's our jobs as creators. You have to give people a reason to come to your website. And sure, maybe, the glory days of Pinterest, like, the day that I got 10,000 page views from one pin, those days are likely gone, right? We know that as social media matures and evolves with its user population, I think this is something, and this is probably a bit of something you don't say to bloggers, but Pinterest doesn't owe us anything, right? Like nobody owes you anything. And I think that especially people who have been around for a while, we're like, well, oh, Pinterest this and Pinterest that, or Instagram that. This is rented territory. That's why you focus on high quality. You continue to evolve based on your reader base. What do your people want? And if you're focusing on high quality content, the platforms are all just gravy, right? This is a place for you, channels for communicating and marketing what you do, but don't ever take them for granted. And that's why I talk a lot of too, is like, because I come from the blogging world and I work with influencers, I work with, long-term bloggers as clients. And I've seen this real shift that people start out as just for fun on Instagram or YouTube. And next thing they know, they skyrocket and they're influential, but they don't have a website or blog. And I've seen, or I've seen somebody who has a website or blog and they just use Instagram. and then their Instagram account gets hacked. It's all rented territory. So you have to really think about diversifying your traffic. And I think that's where, for me, Pinterest is a no-brainer because most people aren't using it, or even if they feel that they're using it, they aren't using it to really the full benefit for diversifying their traffic, search traffic, Pinterest traffic, what Facebook and Instagram will allow the people to leave and come to your website. Like, it's always in your best interest to diversify where your traffic is coming from.
Yeah, I talk about that a lot just for diversifying your revenue. We both spoke at the Food Blogger Summit, and I was talking about revenue diversification just because you never know when Amazon's going to say, you know what, our affiliate commission is going to be, cut in half now. Or,
exactly.
AdThrive and, Mediavine, there's a pandemic, so our advertisers aren't giving us money and your RPMs are down. The more places you can rely on, the easier it is if one of those dries up suddenly or changes their algorithm.
Yeah. Well, I think that's like in general, that is what we're seeing happening with business. Like, look how many businesses, just to get very real, I live in a beautiful small neighborhood, has lots of great little shops. There's businesses in my neighborhood that had 8 months to get themselves online for Christmas, right? There's a toy shop. We love it. It has great toys. My kid loves them all. Guess what she didn't do? She didn't get online. Guess who's not getting my money, because I don't want her to have to email me photos of stocking stuffers. So unfortunately, it's the same. How can you continue to evolve your business so that you can make money if something shifts or changes? And I think this, for bloggers, we think about affiliate income, we think about ad revenue, we think about sponsorships, and different people have success with different things based on their talents and personality. But the people who evolve and keep things authentic and focus on their content, but evolve with their audiences. I see that too, right? Is like, even on Pinterest, video pins and story pins are they're basically becoming more and more popular. Pinterest is pushing them. And I see a lot of resistance. Again, another place, but we're seeing video becoming more and more important because regular people love video, right? We're all like fruit flies. We all love things that move. Right?
Very true.
So if you don't want to adapt, what are you going to do? Right? You're going to make yourself so that people end up falling out of love, right?
I think that is one of the benefits of having blogged for a long time, that you and I have seen a lot of platforms and a lot of the right way to do things come and go over time. And it's
exactly,
you get used to it. I wasn't a fan of social media, and I didn't have to be a decade ago.
Yeah.
Where now it is more and more important, and it's hard to have a thriving blog without having presence on all these different platforms.
What's nice, though, is that at least nowadays there's choice. You could have a podcast. You could have a strong email marketing, approach to things. Pinterest. I think, what I see with a lot of the big bloggers who I represent is they're mostly actually, and this is what I know newer bloggers don't want to hear, OG bloggers who are making the most money, like who are, quit their jobs, even their partners sometimes have quit their jobs. Search traffic in Pinterest, and especially home decor, DIY, craft, and food. If you're in those niches and you focus on SEO, and now we know Pinterest, I think there was always this argument, is Pinterest social media? Is it a search engine? It's a search engine, just like YouTube, just like Google. So if you're already putting in the effort to optimize for search traffic, Pinterest is a no-brainer. It's like, they go to, that's like a match made in heaven. And I think that we know the people who get lots of traffic from, search engines or Pinterest, it's because they've hit this sweet spot of creating content that people are looking for and ensuring you're using the right keywords to help people find it so that you can be discovered. And that, as new bloggers really struggle with that, right? Like, how can people find me? How can, I'll just keep posting to Instagram. And it's like, well, you have to think outside the box. And that's where things like Pinterest, or, you have to think about what you can control as well.
And I've heard you refer to Pinterest as, I think, a problem-solving platform, that people go there to solve problems. Can you talk a little bit about how that applies to food bloggers? I feel like at our basic level, that is what we do. Is someone wants to make something, and we say, here is your solution to that problem.
That's just it. So what's so beautiful is that people who go to Pinterest are actually going there with intent. They're planning to do something. And I actually think that food is a little bit different on Pinterest, that people gather ideas. Like, it's this platform where people are gathering ideas for projects, whether it's, building something outside, all of a sudden you're being forced to work from home with your children, or you're training a puppy. There's all these problems that people have. Food is a little bit different, I find, actually. So I look for a recipe the day I'm going to take it. And that's actually unusual for Pinterest. Most people on Pinterest are gathering ideas. Like right now, people are gathering, if they celebrate Christmas, they're gathering all their Christmas recipes, side dishes, new desserts, right? Or a cake that you could send to somebody and drop off at their door that's not going to go, soft or whatever. There's like all these new things that we have to learn how to do, right? With distancing. And so Pinterest is really wonderful because, and that's why I like it, is that people are searching for the content you have. So if you optimize it, you have the ability to connect somebody to the solution that you have to their problem. I've leftover pineapple. What can I make tonight? I got too many apples when I went to the farm. What are apple recipes? And Pinterest offers this way for people to search using keywords, but also to search with their eyes. And food is such a beautiful thing. And the funny thing is about it, though, you see this whole spectrum. There's like the more home cooking, there's the high-end cooking, but you're going to resonate with different people on there, right? Like I always kind of go for a mixture. I make a lot of choices based off aesthetics. Like, if the muffins look like very moist, then I'm going to grab that one. The one that looks dry and has a crumbly top, that's not for me. But it allows me to quickly decide. And actually, that's why I don't use Google to search recipes, is because I decide from the pictures what I'm going to make.
I like that.
So this is what's interesting about Pinterest, that as food bloggers, it's in the top 5, right? Like it's one of the top 5 most searched industries is that people, and it's a really common denominator. And what's interesting about Pinterest is it actually rewards people who are differentiating their approach to recipes. So, is it fast? Is it toddler friendly? Is it, skinny version? Is it the healthy version? Is it the, using, there's all these different variants, right? Slow cooker, pressure cooker, like, and Pinterest, because that it's a search engine, it uses those words to help connect people with the recipes that they're looking for.
So it really can a lot more powerful than Google in some of those ways, that it can really help you pull out the exact recipes you're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, it is so much more powerful to look at a picture of food and decide, is this something I want to make, rather than just read an SEO optimized headline that's popping up in a list.
Well, and what we're seeing in the blogging community is this recognition. And this is like some of the things that I teach to the people who are more advanced. I have a Pinterest marketing membership that attracts bloggers, and a lot of them are heavily invested in their SEO traffic and optimizing, continually updating their SEO to get more. Is that what we see is that because Pinterest is also a search engine, when you start to go viral on Pinterest, it sends a social signal to Google that you're gaining authority and going viral on Pinterest. And then you can gain domain authority on Google for something that you just published. So we have a Latina food blogger and lifestyle blogger in our group. And she used the technique that I teach of sort of marrying your keyword research on Pinterest with your SEO research. And she had a very saturated Mexican recipe go viral and get onto the first page within 3 weeks because it went viral on Pinterest. So Pinterest, the indicator for virality to search engines and other third-party apps is saves. So I've worked with food bloggers who their key marketing metric or KPI with me for my success and work is to actually not increase website traffic. They're not even worried about that. They just want me to nudge up and grow their monthly saves because they know that's sending social signals to Google.
So they'll get traffic not from Pinterest, but from Google being alerted, basically.
Yeah, and then they do play off of each other.
Yeah. Hopefully some amount of the people that save it do go through the recipe, right? And check it out.
Yeah, they do. But it is an interesting thing that people are discovering and being like, wait a sec, right? Especially when you have a ambitious growth in mind.
And I would assume too that if you're trying to just grow your brand in general, like a lot of us are, that having people save your pins, being out there and show up on people's search results on Pinterest a lot more would help increase their brand visibility just overall, right?
Well, and I love that, Jason, because that's actually something that a lot of people don't recognize, especially because I think we did have this old mold, like Pinterest is your traffic generator. It's a lead generator. And the way that I actually describe it, especially to new business owners or people who are newer to Pinterest is it's wonderful for visibility, right? You create brand recognition, people start to see you, and you can really create, especially if you're active on other platforms. All of a sudden people are seeing you everywhere, right? They're seeing you talked about in Facebook communities. They're seeing you on Instagram. They're seeing you on Pinterest. And next thing you know, it's sort of this omnipresence approach that, especially for business owners, right, is when they feel that they're not getting any love from Instagram, or the new algorithms on Facebook are killing me. I have to pay. So then it's like, well, where can you get visibility? And Pinterest is a wonderful place for that.
So I assume when you're interested in starting to move towards Pinterest and try to maximize it, you just don't throw up random pictures from your website and with links to your blog. Is that not the most effective way to go about it?
Well, you could do that. Is that the best idea? Probably not. Like all platforms, Pinterest has things that it prefers you to do right now. And this is causing a lot of upset that Pinterest does really, although bloggers shouldn't mind, Pinterest is really pushing that they want to encourage its user base who's, business sided things, which includes bloggers, is to focus on fresh content. And fresh content is newly published content. So just like Google, it wants you to be continually adding to the machine. That is no different. That's always been the case. The people who get the most growth from Pinterest are those that are engaging in a regular publishing schedule. So it's difficult. It's a hard slog for, say, an e-commerce shop that has 10 products and they don't change their listings, right? That's going to be very hard. But for people who are regularly engaging and publishing new blog posts, people will ask me, well, what does that mean? And I'm like, well, if you can publish 1 a week, 2 a week, you're great. 1 every 2 weeks, also good. But Pinterest really wants you to be engaging and sharing fresh content to the platform. They, it will serve you well if you do some keyword research before you put your pins up. Food bloggers in particular should be adding a combination of Pinterest graphics. I know that makes them cringe, but using the text overlay, you can create some really interesting collages, or even, those beautiful stack collages where a video is on top and a still image below. Create some Pinterest graphics and then pin your process pictures. I know people are always like, wait, why would I do that? Pinterest users love process pictures. We don't know why. They also love ugly and unstaged, which kills people who are very, very advanced photographers. But it's always good to add both. And I think that people are really drawn to human. So if you have a picture of it doesn't have to be a perfectly staged kitchen, but people are attracted to seeing how you make something, ingredients laid out, mixing the bowl, that type of thing, adding the ingredients in. People love seeing that stuff, whether it's craft or food. So optimizing your assets, sizing them appropriately for the platform. I know that when I work with food bloggers as clients, they might take 30 pictures of a recipe, but only publish 5. And so I always recommend taking those additional assets and uploading them to Pinterest. They don't have to be perfect, right? But size them, put them up on the platform, and get some more speed out of them. They're beautiful. They just maybe weren't that perfect shot for the blog post or for Instagram.
So if you do something like that with the photos that you didn't use on your blog, can you tie it together to the post that the dish that they're referencing, so people know where it's coming from as well?
Exactly. So you can manually upload pins within Pinterest and designate any image to any URL. And Pinterest will see it as a new image with that existing URL. I also encourage people that if you have old blog posts that are very popular, what we find is often the things that are driving you traffic are actually from last year, which is so ironic that they're telling us fresh pins. None of my clients, nothing we're pinning today is sending okay, Christmas, right? We're close to the holidays right now. If you're listening at a different time of year, that happens, right? Like when you're in something that's seasonally very big, of course you're going to have things. But for us, usually it's our Christmas recipes from last year. It's because they've had time to be indexed. They've already proven to be superpowers, for the short time that they were there, so that by the time that the next season comes up, that's what's sending all the traffic. So what I do recommend, though, is if you have some really heavy hitter, high RPM blog posts from previous years that are seasonal, create fresh images or fresh graphics. So again, using maybe ones you didn't use, or making a new collage, using new text overlay, and popping those onto Pinterest is always a good idea, because you're sort of freshening them up and you might get some new eyes on them.
So getting traffic is obviously a good thing, and
Mhm.
expanding your brand and everything we've talked about. But when traffic comes to your site, I've heard you talk about the customer journey and
Yes.
that it's not just dumping them into kind of a ad ridden page, that
Mhm.
you should think about what you're trying to accomplish with these individuals that are coming to your site. Can you talk a little bit about what you
Oh,
mean by
yeah.
the customer journey?
This is my love language, Jason. So what I find, it's like so funny because if you had talked to me 8 years ago, 7 years ago, 5 years ago, as I get deeper and deeper and deeper, and I experience different things, right? So when you start working with just bloggers, they just want page views, they just want traffic, right? They don't care. But then as I started getting more deeper into the marketing world and understanding how people make money beyond being a blogger, so whether it's e-commerce or being a brand, people will say, well, I get traffic, but I'm not making any money. But unless you don't do ads or have sponsorships, etc. And so I started really trying to think, well, what would that look like? Mapping that sort of concept across different people. And so I've worked with bloggers before who say when the pandemic happened, we saw that our ad networks were throttling how much you could make. Your traffic was at an all-time high, and oops, now you're having double the traffic. We're just gonna throttle everything. And this individual said to me, what can I do? And I said, well, let's get smart. What do you need to do? Where can you create, how can you get these people to become repeat readers so that when things go back up, or when you publish something new, or when you have a new email that has 3 of your blog posts in bed? She's like, well, yeah, I need to get them on my email list. And I said, let's optimize for email capture. Or I said, have you ever laid out that journey of what are your most popular recipes? What are your most popular blog posts? So if somebody finds you for a new thing, maybe some sort of dessert, do you have 3 other desserts that you could lead them to that people love, right? These are your most popular desserts. And so that you can create that customer journey. And people, when I talk about customer journey, people without a fail, bloggers are like, oh no, that's not me, it's me. And I'm like, yes, it is you. Because think about it. You make money from people coming to your website and spending a long time there. So as a business owner, you have to think, how can I get people to stay on the site longer, read more, go to my blog posts that have the highest satisfaction, make me the most money, and how can I get them to come back? I think the term sticky, right? Or super fans. You want to create super fans. So you have to think about how you've optimized your website. So one thing I see, especially newer people who have been newly granted access to some of the top ad networks, is I cannot see the recipe because you have so much video placement. And I think you need to have that check-in with people, right? Or your email pop-up. We all know, on mobile, 80% of traffic from Pinterest is mobile. So you have to make sure that people are coming, that you're suggesting what they should do next. So whether it's suggesting for them to go to some of your top ranking content, or making it an easy yes for them to join your email list, so that every time you send an email newsletter, I'm very, very a big fan of, what do you own? You own your website and you own your email list. You don't own all those other things. So if you get locked out, hacked, something goes down, are you still going to be able to make money? Or how do you make money, right? So I know a lot of bloggers have digital products or, physical products that they sell to complement and diversify their money, how they bring in money. So thinking about how do you have a direct line to people if a platform that you have a lot of traffic come from, or a lot of influence on, something happens to it. So I really, really like to encourage people to get to know, spend times in your Google Analytics. What is their entry point? What's their exit point? How long are they on site? How can you nudge that up month over month? And I think, just to get very practical, I always look for 2 to 5% growth on metrics like that. So if you are working on your website optimization, your upload speed, maybe ad placement on your blog posts, start playing around and then look, what was it in August? What was it in September? Okay, we've increased our time on site by 10 seconds, right? Or now they're looking at an average of 4 blog posts instead of 1.6. So are you creating that, that pathway? Are you making it an easy yes for them to find your content? And this is where, especially people who started blogging a very long time ago, all of our websites were broken, right? Like we started when all these lovely, like we created our own plugins, essentially. I actually was sharing just last week is that when I created my WordPress blog, I had to custom code drop it down menus. Can you imagine? Like that's in every theme now, right? And it's like mind blowing because I think about it now and I can't, tech is so complicated now. Like my husband does all of it. But I think that like some people, our websites, especially older websites, they really could benefit from, faster upload speed, thinking about how ads interfere. And I know that's how people make their money, but you also have to keep the people who are coming happy. So
I was really surprised when Casey Marquis came on. He's from MediaWise and does SEO consulting. He says what they find with a lot of their clients is they turn down the amount of ads they're showing up on the website, which makes people stick around for longer, and they actually make more from their ads because all their other metrics are higher. So it's a better experience and you're making just as much, if not more money sometimes.
Well, that's it. I think sometimes it's easy to say like, oh, I just want like, so many people to see my blog, but would you rather 5 people who are on your website for 25 minutes or 5,000 who come for 2 seconds each? Because, and this is actually, speaking of that, one thing I see is if your time on site is really low from Pinterest, which happens to bloggers, it's because people get to something and it's not what they were expecting, or they think, like, oh my God, too many pop-ups, too many ads, or this looks too complicated. So it's getting super clear in your keyword use, your text overlay, your CTAs, like your call to attentions. What are people going to get? To get the full recipe, go to my blog. To learn more about how to make your own fondant, go to my blog. Like you have to make sure that it's connecting. And what I find is sometimes people say, well, I get low quality traffic from Pinterest, but often it's because they're unintentionally being a bit misleading, right? Like they might be saying one thing and people get on the website and they're like, oh, this isn't what I want.
I like your concept of trying to capture the traffic that comes in and turn them into fans. I do a lot of work lately with doing free email, basically email courses. Some are video, some are text, but it's basically an autoresponder series that steps them through 5 to 10 different lessons to teach them basically whatever concept they're on the page for.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. Just you get new traffic that doesn't really know you probably, and they sign up for that. And then they're opening 50 to 60% like open rates on these.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Courses. You're speaking directly to them and you're
I was going to say, and you're in your inbox.
Yeah.
That's the most intimate place on the internet right now, right? Like think about how we all treat our inboxes different than how we treat every other social channel or place that we could be communicating, right? I think if you can get somebody's email, I think email marketing is hugely or vastly underestimated in the blogging community. And, some people collect emails for years and don't do anything with it. It's never too late to like resurrect your email marketing, get back on the wagon and think like those people were so interested in what you have to talk about that they gave you their most personal thing in the online space, their email address. So they want to hear from you. Whereas someone might follow you on Instagram and they're just like, oh yeah, she shared a recipe once. Like, I might go and look at her account once every 6 months when I need a recipe or idea. Whereas inbox, man, you could get in there once a week, share your, seasonal content, share some tips, share some things that humanize yourself, gain authority, right?
I also feel like an email list is almost like a superpower when you do sponsored posts as well, because you can direct people that might not just be randomly finding this specifically to a page, and you can really boost your engagement with these people that are your biggest fans in a lot of cases. And it makes you look a lot better to brands, I think, than you can if you're not able to kind of direct that fire hose.
Yeah, absolutely. When I think in this day and age, like we're seeing things get noisier and noisier and noisier. And it's like, how can you cut through the noise? Especially, I know that panic, right? Like actually a client of mine said, I just published something with a sponsor and nobody's reading it. Like, what can we do? Do we want to run a promoted pin campaign? What should I be doing on Pinterest? And I said, create a video. Let's create a story series. use anything that's going to help breathe some life into it quickly. But we know Pinterest is a slow burn, but something like email, like that is an art, and allowing people to come, like you said, like super fans, getting into their inbox is an amazing, powerful tool, especially when you do need something quick, right? Or it's wonderful for doing market research. What would you love me to talk about next? What recipes are you guys looking for? What's your favorite recipe that I've ever given you? And tell me a story about it. That's like, on the spot marketing and feedback. It's perfect.
helps remove all that creative onus from having to figure out what you need to cover.
If anyone joins my email list, I do it all the time. I'm like, I'm about to send, what do you guys want to learn next year? Because it allows me to also test that my ideas are still in alignment with my audience, which I think we often forget, right? It's like, my friend and I joke about this. We know that everybody needs broccoli, but everybody thinks they need cheese pizza, right? We all want cheese pizza. Yep. And we always joke that it's like, okay, how do we give them what they need and what they want, but also give them broccoli, right? Like you're going to hide the broccoli underneath the cheese is what you're going to do. But I often survey my audience on a very regular basis to see, what's your biggest challenge right now with Pinterest? What are you annoyed with? How can I help you? What's going on? And it's like, it's such a good way to quickly read the room. And then, you know what? We live in such a world where nobody asks, we're all so lonely. The pandemic has had I'm a very social person. I work for myself, so my life tends to be pretty introverted. My husband and I are sick of talking to each other, right? Like if someone's walking by with a dog and they even look at us, we're going to have them in a conversation for 20 minutes just because we're like, oh, other people. So I think when somebody sends an email and says, how are you? What would you like to learn from me? People are like, oh my goodness, a real human. We love that. We miss humans. We really do. And the pandemic, I think, has really made that very, very clear.
And there's so many faceless sites out there that I think when you respond to someone, or when you have these actual engagement and conversations with your fans, it shows that you're a real person, and it builds that bond even stronger than just reading a blog post of yours once a week.
And just I think especially if people engage with saying, if you ask those questions and then turn that into a blog post. Sally from Houston asked me how I always make perfect, gingerbread houses. Here's how. It's like people are like, oh my god, I'm a celebrity. Like, it's such a small thing though. Like whenever I do Facebook Lives, I scan what's been happening in the group recently, and then I try to mention something that somebody asked, and I say, Melinda asked this morning X, and people will always say, oh my God, I watched that live and you mentioned me. And I'm like, yeah, of course I did. Like, you gave me a great idea. And if you're asking it, other people are wondering it. I think we get too in our own heads and we make things too complicated. Sometimes the answers are right in front of you, what your people want you to talk about or blog about, right?
This has come up in several different conversations, including the mastermind call I was just on, about needing to say things so many times and getting sick of saying them. And I feel like engaging with your audience, is a great way to be like, okay, I haven't said this. Like I had someone ask me whether or not if I could recommend a cookbook for sous vide. And I was like, you do know that I have like 10 sous vide cookbooks out. Like I could tell you which one of those I'd recommend, or if you're looking for someone else's. They're like, I had no idea you had any. I'm like,
yeah. Oh gosh, listen, just this morning I had I actually asked a question yesterday from my email list, and somebody responded and she said, oh, I can't wait for your program to open again. And my program's not open all the time. So she said, I missed it last time. When are you opening the doors again? And I said, well, not probably till February or March. I'm very sorry. She said, well, in the meantime, can you recommend other courses? Well, that's really hard. Like I have one. But, I did recommend her to some free resources, but it's always a funny thing, right? Or people, then if people don't know, you need to talk more about your books.
Yeah.
Right.
So speaking of talking more about things, tell me a little bit more about your course that you have.
Yeah, well, I have a few different things. It's funny because I spent years doing client work, right? Like I think I got a bit of a reputation, especially amongst bloggers, right? Bloggers, we don't trust other people because we're jack of all trades. We are, we're expert writers, we're expert photographers, we know how to market, we know we're not always doing all the things we're supposed to do, but we're like jack of all, like our tech knowledge, we might not always know how to do something, but it's far superior over other people. So people, I got a reputation in the blogger community, and I had a very large client load. But as time goes on, I'm handing on that baton to other people and expanding my digital products. So I have a Pinterest marketing membership. So what that is a dynamic learning environment that is multiple courses, mini courses, that are arranged in such a way to teach people how to DIY their Pinterest marketing. And then it's complemented by regular live teachings. Just today we did a copy clinic. So I like on the spot go through people's copy and tell them how to improve it. We do, regular questions, Facebook community, all that, templates, everything to help you DIY it while having access to me. I always like to say it's like, a champagne tastes on a beer budget.
Nice.
But it's like Netflix, right? That you pay for ongoing access. So we have that. That's my flagship offer. And then I do have a beginner's course, more because people kept asking me to create it, not because my people were bloggers, right? More advanced people. We could have conversations about in-depth blogging concepts, but people kept saying, we just need a 101, like where, especially new bloggers, right? They just want a 101. So I do have a beginner's course. And then I sell digital products. So things that are sort of quick wins for people. I have a Pinterest marketing toolkit that's very popular. It's like a grab bag of a bunch of things that I have developed to help people get results on Pinterest really quickly. And yeah, so I also train Pinterest VAs because I've kept being asked. Like at the height of my agency, I was representing 45 clients, brands, and have had a team of people working with me. But as time goes on, I'm ready. I'm like the Pinterest mom. I'm ready to teach other people how to be successful, knowledgeable Pinterest managers, because if any of your listeners know, there are a sea of people who want to be Pinterest managers, but have no clue what they're doing. So I decided that I would single-handedly start training people to become competent, and I'm slowly giving all those people my clients. So
if someone wants to work with a VA, like a VA or a Pinterest manager, what should they look for? What type of questions should they ask? What should they expect?
So this is my litmus test. And I do this because I have friends who are like high level entrepreneurs. And they'll be like, okay, Meagan, I'm gonna hire a Pinterest manager. Could you, and in the beginning, when I had more time, I would chat with them sometimes. And I chatted with this one woman and I said, okay, well, what are you going to be reporting to your client? And she said, followers and monthly views. And I was like, no, no, that wrong answer. So I find that actually how you can get to and of course, there's some people who might not have as much knowledge, but are very eager. Basically, you want a numbers person. They need to understand differences between and be sort of tech savvy. So they need to feel comfortable with Google Analytics. I think, especially as a blogger, you need to understand, time on site, page views, differences, how to increase your traffic. And this is where I always teach the women that I mentor is that they should be coming up with those marketing key metrics together. So I always mention bloggers often saves on Pinterest is a key metric. Whereas like when I work with a shop owner, they're like, who cares about saves, right? So one vanity metric is your monthly views. It's completely it's like a number that does not matter. I've seen people who have low monthly views and get amazing traffic from Pinterest. It's an inflated number that just means people who are looking at all the pins on your account. So it could be like a brownie recipe that you pinned from somebody 8 years ago that went viral. And that's why you have 2 million views. Drives me crazy. So, asking them about reporting, what numbers, and making sure they're comfortable with understanding the difference between link clicks and page views, understanding how to do keyword research. That's another thing I see people not doing correctly. And I always liken the work that I did as becoming like a method actor, right? Like I had to become the person and curate and pin like they would to attract their ideal person. But bit tech savvy and understand numbers. That's basically what you need, and reliable. Honestly, like for me, that's what when I was hiring staff to help me for my team to execute Pinterest management, for me, the number one thing is reliability, because Pinterest needs you to be consistent and having open communication about it. And then that's really it. Like, some people say like, well, do they have to have a huge portfolio? Are you kidding me? That newbie, she's going to like spend 50 hours on your account. Hire her. You're going to get people will say that to me like, well, actually this came up in my group. Somebody said, well, a client asked me to work for free for 2 hours. And I was like, please don't. Because that means they don't value your time, right? But there's lots of ways people can show you that they know. They don't have to have a big account themselves, but they, being organized and showing other clients or also being eager. That's the funny thing. When I first started, I'll never forget it. I took on a wedding client who had found me on Google, and I spent 40 hours on his account in the first month. And like normally just for it's about 10 hours, right? It should only be like 10 to 15 hours. I spent 40. I charged for 10 because that's what I quoted him for. And like that when you're new, that's what you do. So I want to encourage people that they don't always have to be Pinterest experts. They just have to be like, keep up with things, engaging with all, the new algorithm changes. There's a lot of people who are struggling with the new changes and how to help their clients.
If you, as a client, how do you kind of look at your return on investment to see how much money you can spend to make it worth it and that you're getting, value back?
So what I find like, this, your audience is very specific to bloggers, so it's different. So if you don't sell directly, you're not going to be looking at what a sale conversion is. So I think that is an important conversation to have with all your people who you hire is like, how are you going to measure their success? And this is what I train my people to say, or to have those conversations. Like, what are your business objectives? And then what is a conversion to you? And what are going to be the things that we count as growth? So it could be increasing page views month over month because you make your money from your ad income. It could be email signups as a conversion, right? So if you set up your conversion goals correctly in Pinterest, I even have blogger clients who set up their conversion goals that people who came from Pinterest would read 3 articles or 3 blog posts or see 3 recipes, right? And then we could see each month, okay, we had 1,000 people in the first month. In the second month, we experienced 7% growth. In the third month, we had 14% growth. So we measure month over month growth when it comes to the key metrics that we've decided together. But I think it's like that's why when I use the word conversion, it depends on how you make your money. So is it downloads? Is it email capture? Is it looking at a certain number of blog posts, right? They went here, here, and here, and time on site. Or if you do sell a digital product, say you do have a cookbook that you sell. So there's like all these little different things that you need to go over and talk about. But I think that what I talk about with my people is, one, I also provide a service because I'm taking it off their plate. So how do you put a value on that, right? Like that's what my biggest compliment whenever every year I ask my clients to complete sort of some feedback. And without a doubt, every single one of them says, I just love knowing that somebody very competent is taking care of my account and I do not have to think about it. And actually that, like when I hire people, it's the same, right? Like I just don't want to think about that thing. So if I can pay you to do it, because my time is money, it means I'm not out walking my dog. I'm not with my kid playing trains. So if I can find somebody who can do something 80% as well as me, that's like perfect, right? But I think it really depends from person to person. And I always kind of encourage people, don't hire a Pinterest manager if you're not making money. Like, some people get very enthusiastic and they start investing money in marketing. I know it seems like a great idea, but you should not go into the red. Like only invest in things once you have the money. But Pinterest is one of those things that's usually a huge opportunity for people. But you have to decide what your goals are and be realistic about it. So if you make your money from ad revenue, then you should be focusing on page views, right? Page views and saves if you want to get up your domain authority, because you also get a lot of search traffic.
Mm-hmm. So it's all comes back to what you're talking about the customer journey, knowing what that is for your ideal customers and how that fits into ultimately making money or moving your brand forward.
Exactly. And that's one problem that people say like, oh, it's a shiny thing, right? I want to use Pinterest. And we'll say, okay, well, how do you make your money? Or what I'll start asking questions and they're like, oh, I don't know. I don't know. Like, I don't think you're ready, right? Like, that's not ethical to take somebody on when they actually don't know how they make money, or they don't know what, the customer journey. And that's where sometimes there's like, what do you mean you don't want to work with me? And it's like, because I can't take your money. You're not even sure what your most popular content is, or, you don't understand that we need these things. I would say that, like, with the new algorithm with Pinterest, you have to be publishing on a regular basis. So if you're not actively publishing for different reasons, taking care of your kids, elderly parents you're taking care of, or for whatever, working a day job and you're exhausted, whatever the reason is, don't invest in unless you're going to hire somebody to help you blog, which I know a lot of food bloggers now do, right? You can outsource like recipe development, but yeah, don't do it until you actually have the time to publish on a regular basis. Then you're going to get the best results from Pinterest.
And do you have to be publishing like brand new content, or if you're going back and refreshing older posts on your blog, which, helps SEO a lot right now, that people go back, they refresh the images and maybe update the text some. Is that new enough for Pinterest?
Well, so great question. This came up a week ago. We don't actually know how Pinterest defines fresh. So we assume that their technology, that their scanning technology and engineering, the way that it's set up, is that they know when something has been published. But we don't know, if it's like Google, like this question came up, can I go back and refresh? What if I change the URL? What if we don't actually know because they won't tell us. So it's an educated guess, right? They basically tell us they know when something was published, and they know if the images that you pinned were in the post originally, or if you've created a new pin image and uploaded it. They know it's like, I have these different tiers of freshness. So gold is like, published right away, put onto Pinterest, gold, right? Never existed on the platform. Silver, old URL, new image. And then bronze is like old image, old URL. Oh. But we don't know how Pinterest determines, if you freshen something up, unfortunately. So sorry, a very gray answer.
Sometimes that's the right answer is a gray answer. We don't like them, but that's right.
Reality. Well, this is it. I actually saw that on Twitter the other day, because I still use Twitter, which is crazy. But a marketing expert said, so much of marketing is gray, and people do not want to hear that, right? But it's just not black and white. I think he said, only marketers say it depends more than like, it depends. It depends. It depends. A very common phrase in our world.
Well, Meagan, I appreciate you coming on, sharing all of your expertise. If people want to get a hold of you, give them the best URL for them to go to get more information about you.
Yeah, so it's MeaganWilliamson.com. That's where you're going to find all things me, my products and my blog posts, which I'm starting to blog more frequently. I got off the train for a few months due to life, but I'm back on. I've taken my own advice, right?
Need to keep it fresh.
Keeping them fresh. Exactly. So yeah, that's the best place to find me.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on. It was great talking to you. And I feel about 30 times more knowledgeable about Pinterest than I did an hour ago. So I appreciate that.
So glad. Thanks for having me.
This has been Makin Bacon, all about helping you serve your fans, grow your income, and get the most out of your blog. Remember, you can join us live every Thursday when we record these episodes. You can ask the guest questions, talk to the other bloggers in the comments, and even see our smiling faces. So join us Thursdays at makethatbacon.com/live. Until next time, I'm Jason Logston. See you next Thursday.